My capstone is going to be presented through 4 songs. They will be played and recorded by myself, each representing a different year at Regis. We'll speak upon the significance of each song before I play them. The first song is Eleanor Rigby, that is written and played by the Beatles. I will be playing it on the viola. The second song is the main theme from the movie Chariots of Fire. It is called Chariots of Fire. I actually believe the song was written before the movie. The third song will be Merry Go Round of Life. That is the main theme to a movie called Howl's Moving Castle. And the last song will be is Ashokan Farewell. That is a older folk song that is not associated with a film or a popular artist. I will be presenting the religious pillar of the grad at grad. Faith was a large part of my experience at Regis Jesuit, growing both through theology classes, through teachers, through different experiences. I feel like that was a good reflection point through my 4 years at Regis. I am presenting this through the music medium because I feel like music is very similar to religion in the way that you have to work at it and you have to develop your skills in that area. They don't just flow naturally, and I feel like my music progression is somewhat symbolic of my religious progression. Maybe music on a larger scale, as I guess that was going all the way back to 3rd grade, but I am presenting my religious element more specifically on the past 4 years. The first song I will be talking about is Eleanor Rigby. It is a song written and composed by the Beatles, as I mentioned earlier. It has a lot to do about loneliness and being lost. It also has a lot to do with wasted intentions. As I mentioned also earlier, that my theme for this is religion. At that point in time, I kind of had wasted intentions in beliefs. There was no purpose in a wasted intent or a belief that you say you believe something and then never really actually bind it to yourself. I think that that's a major misstep that a lot of people that call themselves Christians have, because often we just label ourselves, one thing and say, yeah, we agree with that line of thinking, and then we actually never bind it to ourselves, and then it doesn't actually become our beliefs, it becomes our religion. So at that point, I was kind of in that phase. I was a little fundamentalist because I hadn't been taught better. I was not as ambitious to develop my own faith. I was just kind of feeding off my parents' faith at that time, which middle school, that's not a terrible thing to be, but coming into high school, I think that freshman year kind of helped me not necessarily change my direction, but it helped me to kind of see where the flaws in that thinking were. That was definitely highlighted sophomore year a lot more, but it kind of helped me grow into, this is something I'm going to work on personally. It's not going to be something I have to or can just get by with accepting someone else's ideals. So I was really interested in the historical elements of Christianity at that time. I was intrigued by some of the Greek connections, some of the connections with actual evidence that we have found. I was very curious about that because I had not yet connected the fact that some of these stories and whatnot may not be perceived as fact by the Catholic faith. It was some of those concepts were a little foreign to me, and I think the freshman year helped to start me on that path of understanding what was a little foreign that I needed to understand better, what I would come to believe and what I would come to be skeptical of, what I would pick and choose to develop my beliefs as and for my own faith. My sophomore year, I'm getting more of a reshape. I'm starting to learn about both knowledge and different viewpoints. It's not just Bible stories and seeing it as kind of fundamental information and whatnot. It's also starting to look at it from angles and kind of teaching us how to view religious texts, religious philosophies. It's incorporating a lot more personal thought, and I am starting to define my own beliefs in this a little more. Christianity is becoming kind of a guide for defining a belief structure, but it's becoming less fundamentalist. I'm not taking the facts at total face value now. I'm starting to realize that some of them were not written to be facts, they were written to be truths. This was a large year for defining the difference between fact and truth. It was kind of like relating the then and there to the here and now, also because now I was also getting a lot more context to the biblical knowledge that I had and the biblical knowledge that I was getting. We talked about the Assyrian and Babylonian creation stories and some American Indian creation stories, in comparison to the Christian, or not Christian, I guess the Jewish creation story that Christianity has also adopted as part of the Old Testament, and how that was similar, and how the difference was in the truth and the essence between the two gods rather than kind of the style of the story. So I thought that was interesting. Taking it back to the music, the next song I'm playing is Chariots of Fire. That is the main theme to the movie, Chariots of Fire. And it was about the 1924 English Olympic track team. And it starts out at the beginning of the movie. It's kind of symbolic of the long haul, representing the start of something new and the push towards the goal of ultimately winning the race. There's actually a lot of Catholic elements, a lot of spiritual stuff in that movie, and I actually recommend it to anyone who's curious about their religious path, about their path of pursuing something hard and pursuing it with passion, because whether that is religion or that is running in the Olympics, it had a lot of good value to that. Off the movie, getting back to the music, and actually back to my sophomore year. My sophomore year was not about winning the Olympic Games, but in theology terms, it was more about training myself to learn and develop my faith through my understanding. That's where the connection to this song comes in the biggest way. And in many ways, freshman year was kind of like the preseason to my faith, like getting back into it. Not really getting back into it, just kind of like learning what it's about. And this is the actual work and the dedication that begins to take root. This is the first couple weeks in the season when you are training to learn and to really get your body and your soul and your mindset set into whatever you're trying to work towards. Junior year was a fairly large step in my faith journey, especially in terms of Regis Jesuit philosophy. That was kind of where it started to elevate my faith into the present and starting to relate it to my life and the things that were happening now. And I think that was probably the biggest jump from taking the Bible into past context and letting it be something I believed in or chose not to believe in from the past and making it relevant to the now. That was huge for me because that focused on a lot of values and morals, ways of thinking, rather than telling me what to think. I think that was a large part of what made that junior year theology so significant to me. The modernization of my faith also helped to connect the present and current circumstances, such as homelessness and uh, hunger, all sorts of world issues that were happening right now, just war theory, things like that. That was very present and relevant to I guess, my reality that I wasn't really taking notice of. And having my beliefs, whether it be specifically religious or not, it was shaping my values as a person and connecting those to what I believed in a deity and that sort of thing. So I thought that was, even if you didn't come out of junior theology a Christian or, some sort of religious path, I guess, it taught you a lot as a person. And I thought that was pretty crucial. So those combined with my elements of advancing faith and beliefs, that was a pretty key point in my religious journey. But it was also a bit turbulent because it was not a way I had thought of religion and faith before. My faith had been kind of separate from my beliefs about the world and our values and operations in it. And I think that connection was kind of key, that faith is something core to your being, and from that should stem out to other things that should not just be connected in kind of a outreaching way. That should honestly be your connection to something else, and that your faith was demonstrating itself in value form and in theological ways, I guess. If you were discussing your faith, that should come from you, not just necessarily a system that you have chosen to subscribe to. So the song I'm doing for this is the main theme from Howl's Moving Castle. It is called A Merry-Go-Round of Life. and it is symbolic of a story that was rooted in someone finding oneself. And there are a lot of elements that were highlighted through both the song and the film that regard character, beliefs, integrity to self, um, things like that, more core, central things as more important than looks and surface level factors. And I think that was helping to elevate the person rather than what the world sees the person as. Um, just kind of like from that surface level element. And I think that was kind of a good representation of how my faith was starting to shape from Christian, what the world saw Christian, right, and what I believed as my faith, as my understanding. Um, there was that line that was starting to get drawn and separated because I was starting to develop and form my own character, my own opinions. It was kind of the point where both myself and the music and I guess the movie were experiencing that turbulence that I mentioned earlier. Um, but the comprehension and the depth of the beliefs that I kind of came out of that time period with was so much greater. And I am actually very thankful to my junior theology teacher for kind of helping to elevate that. The senior year. This is kind of the final. The most recent experiences, they're all fresh. But I actually think that this past year has been probably the most formational, possibly even more formational than the junior year in terms of faith, because this is when I started to realize that I don't necessarily need to subscribe to one faith or one religion to define my faith. I don't necessarily define myself as something other than a Christian. However, I have found that I can definitely draw elements from other faiths in order to elevate my own beliefs and understandings. God concepts taught by Mr. Rogers, that was a very big part of my, I guess, breaking that barrier, realizing that I can learn about other things than just, Christianity and set Christian values and morals, to understand my religious beliefs, and actually not just to understand them, to form my own religious beliefs. So far, we've talked about Christianity, obviously, Islam, Buddhism, which was talked about in both God concepts and philosophy. Hinduism, Judaism, Taoism was talked about more so in philosophy than in God concepts, although we are going to get into that. A number of religions that we've been able to draw, not maybe all drawing the same things, but we've had the opportunity to draw different elements from, such as, say, meditation, such as different philosophies on life, on letting go of certain things. Wisdom was a big theme, teaching me how, not necessarily teaching me how I should form my own line of thinking, what I should try to take from different things. I don't think that any of this past year has been telling me what to learn. It's been teaching me how to determine what I want to learn. And I think that's very key, especially in forming something that is a core belief of a lot of people. Religion is a large part of a lot of people's lives, and I think that this is a great step to making religion and faith a part of my own life in my own way, because now I'm defining what I believe, how I believe it, and I'm accessing the tools to get myself to that point. Utilizing values that I've learned, utilizing the ability to discern values that I might pick up in the future, utilizing the knowledge that I've gained to help also discern what knowledge I want to take with me in the future and what things maybe I don't want to pick up. Maybe I'm skeptical, or I'm not necessarily taking something for face value because I want to dig deeper. Maybe it's because I believe it not to be true. An example being, I don't believe the earth is flat. That's a fairly easy example, but going forward in religion, maybe I am not a believer in a polygamous relationship, or in many gods. I'm not a fan of that, so those are some things I've already ruled out. Now, those are surface level stuff that I came up off the top of my head, but I've already ruled out certain deeper things, and I'll probably rule out a number of different things in the future, and I'll probably rule in some things that maybe weren't defined by the typical Christian. So a congregation of different religions to help form my own faith. I think that is huge and essential to making beliefs part of your own core. The song I've picked to help kind of define this is Ashokan Farewell. The reason it has no tie to a film or famous artist or whatever. The reason I picked it is because it's short, but it's fairly dear to me, and it has been for a couple years now. I like to play it just honestly in my spare time, and it's a mix of kind of both bold joy and also tender sorrow. It's got a defined tune, but also simultaneously fluctuating dynamics, meaning it's not necessarily a static, one color song. It's got a broad range of musical tones, highs and lows in terms of volume, and in terms of styles. It packs a large punch for such a small amount of time. It's a beautiful song, but it's very simple, honestly, and I think it's a good way to symbolize something such as my faith. My faith is deeply personal, but it's not twisted and elaborated to the point that it loses its integrity. That's probably the main connection between my faith at this point and how it's grown to the music that I've been trying to elevate my faith through in this project. All in all, it's a song that leaves the past behind in a bittersweet nostalgia, but it paints the future in hopeful gleam as well. It's often used in war movies, honestly, and I think the reasoning for that is that it honors the dead and the deceased, but it also honors what they were fighting for and the progress that they were trying to make. I don't know what I'm going to face in the future, but I'm more confident than most that I will meet the challenges of a new dawn with a method to my madness. For that, I am grateful to the ones who showed me how to make my own path, rather than simply telling me to follow one laid out before me. Thank you. This last song is going to conclude my Capstone project. Thank you for listening, and I appreciate your time.